is interpretation. A poem well read is a poem well understood. In this podcast, brought to you by the Literary Life Podcast, poet Thomas Banks will help you increase your love and understanding of poetry. Poetry is not a silent endeavor. It's meant to be heard, and more importantly, it's meant to be recited out loud. Join us now as poet Thomas Banks presents The Well-Read Poem.
Hello, and welcome to The Well-Read Poem. Today's poem I have taken from one of the wisdom books of the Bible, namely the book of Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes was, for a very long time, one of the most preached on and commented on books of sacred scripture. And I think in today's world, it's not as popular as it deserves to be. And I say that with some hesitation because I don't have statistical evidence for that claim necessarily, but I have met a number of people who have told me various times in my life that they find Ecclesiastes kind of pessimistic and depressing, and they don't like to spend too much time for it. Not that they think it shouldn't be in the canon of the Bible, but that it's just not their cup of tea. Anyway, I think that's kind of unfortunate because it's certainly one of the most profound, mysterious, and certainly beautifully written books in the whole of the Bible, I think. And debates about its authorship, actually, I was reading up on this morning, go back a pretty long way. I was surprised to find that Martin Luther, for instance, thought that the book of Ecclesiastes was assembled out of teachings of Solomon by sages who lived in times after him, but not actually written by Solomon himself. And even centuries before Martin Luther, St. Gregory of Nyssa said something similar, that even though it's popularly attributed to Solomon, it was probably assembled out of various of his proverbial sayings after he had died by rabbis, scholars, and the like. Anyhow, I am not enough of a biblical commentator to place any definitive end and answer to that line of inquiry, but it adds to the mystique of the book. And it's also been said, and I think this is kind of true in a way, that it's almost in some ways one of the most pagan books of the Bible. There is an undercurrent of almost kind of Epicurean detachment in it. You know, this sense of the futility of human endeavor, the falseness and the unworthiness of so many of the common sort of materialistic prizes that we seek after in life: fame, renown, riches, all of these things that are, you could say, sort of the property of natural revelation rather than special revelation, the kind of philosophical conclusions that a lot of Epicureans and Stoics and other schools of Greek and Roman philosophy arrived at, independent of Solomon himself. It's also a great book of mourning. You know, famously, Solomon says, it is better to go into the house of mourning than the house of feasting. And I think probably one place where most of us have heard something from this book at some point in our lives is at a funeral. The whole tone of the book, most of it anyway, is very funereal, setting us to reflect on the last things: death, dissolution, decay, especially the last chapter, which I'm going to read to you here. So this is Ecclesiastes chapter 12. I'm going to read you the first 8 verses of it. And this is the King James Version, because the King James Version, whatever you think of its merits as a translation, is certainly one of the, I would say undisputably, one of the great monuments of beautiful English. If you want to see what I tell my students, if you were speaking to a foreigner and you wanted to give them some sense of what the English language, the majesty of the English language at its finest, give them a copy of the King James Bible, a selection of the plays of Shakespeare, and maybe a copy of Paradise Lost. That's my personal short list right there. If you're making an elevator pitch for the English language. Anyway, so this is Ecclesiastes chapter 12, King James Version. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened, and the doors shall be shut in the streets, when the sound of the grinding is low. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Also when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears that shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. Or ever the silver cord be loosed, and the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. One image that I love there, it's a really simple statement, but it shows how certain verbal effects can enhance the meaning of a particular sentence when it says, man goeth to his long home. All those long O's in that sentence kind of sound like a door groaning on its hinges. It kind of sounds like a groan or something like that. And what does it mean, man goeth to his long home? Well, that's a poetic way of saying that, man returns to where he came from, that is to the dust. Man, every man is doomed ultimately to die, and the long home is the earth. So because man goeth to his long home, you can read half a dozen English versions of the Bible, you know, whether the King James against older ones like William Tyndale's and any of its modern competitors. I don't think anyone for poetic aptitude has improved on that particular line. Man goeth to his long home. It's not the simplest way of saying something, but it does drive home its point unforgettably, I believe. This passage, I said that you've probably heard something from it in a funeral or a memorial service at least once in your life, or if you're not old enough to have been to a funeral or memorial service, well, it's very likely that you will hear something from Ecclesiastes when that time comes. Uh, Incidentally, the English writer George Orwell, who was not a religious man at all, Orwell was an atheist virtually all of his life, I believe. When he was dying, he stipulated in his will that he would like a traditional funeral service with this passage read. So it's one of those, I guess you could say, it's one of those biblical texts that an atheist might be fond of, since there's no indication in these 8 verses anyway of a resurrection, a final judgment. It's you could say, like I said before, kind of there's something kind of pagan about it, which might be why it appeals across sectarian lines, this particular book. Anyhow, let me read this one more time. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verses 1 through 8, King James Version. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened, and the doors shall be shut in the streets, when the sound of the grinding is low. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Also when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fear shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. I should tell you one more thing about this book. In Hebrew, the title of this book is not Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is a Greek word. It comes from the Septuagint Greek translation. The name of this book in Hebrew is Koheleth, which simply means the preacher or the speaker in the assembly. And the preacher is referred to several times here. So the sage, the man who has lived long, sought vanities, and in old age renounced them, as he hopes his audience will as well. That's where the title comes from in Hebrew, Koheleth. Anyhow, I hope that this reading has given you cause to pick up the King James Bible if you have never picked it up before, because everyone should read that book at least once before they die, before they go to their long home. This has been the Well-Read Poem. Thank you very much.
This has been The Well-Read Poem with poet Thomas Banks, brought to you by the Literary Life podcast. For show notes and the text of the poem, visit theliterary.life. To find out more about Thomas Banks and the poetry resources he offers, go to houseofhumaneletters.com. This podcast is patron supported. Visit patreon.com/theliterarylife to find out how you can support this podcast and get additional bonus content, including monthly live poetry explications. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening.